will now call to order the June 24th, 2004 Erlanger Board of Adjustment hearing. Take a roll call to determine we have a quorum. Mr. John McVeigh.
Present.
Mr. Noah Osterhag. He's not here. Mr. Eric Rolfe.
Here.
Mr. Terry Farrow.
Here.
And Mr. Bob Whalen and myself am here. We do have a quorum. You guys have received a copy of the minutes for the May 20th, 2024 Board of Adjustment hearing. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that the minutes be approved as they are presented.
I make the motion to accept, approve.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Minutes are approved. The staff, are there any postponements or any scheduled business items that items to be made at this time?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. And moving along in our agenda, before we open up the public hearing, I just want to review our procedures. First, we will hear from PDS staff who will present their report, and then we will hear from the applicant up next regarding their request. And then we will open it to the public, and it will go in order of those who are in favor first, those opposed second, and those neutral third. Please note, if you are not signed in on this sheet, you will not have the opportunity to speak up, so please ensure you are signed up. And also that this is the only time that the public is allowed or is permitted to speak, so kind of speak now, forever hold your peace, if you will. After that, the applicant will then have the opportunity to address or clarify any questions or concerns before we then close the public comments and move to discussion amongst the board members. Then the board may choose to ask PDS or the applicant any further questions, any further clarifications if they need to be, and then the board will take a vote on the final ruling will be made. Should there be a tie in the vote, the request is dead. The board then can make a second request to move it along, but again, if it ends in a tie, it's dead. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I just wanted to put that out there so everyone is aware of how this will flow. We will now open the public hearing where we have two items on tonight's agenda. And what I want to do first here is go through the sign-in sheet and read through to ensure that everyone who has the desire to speak is signed in, and that also identified if you are for, against, or neutral. So the first one I have Kevin Dressman. Yes. For, against, neutral? For, okay. Chris Penn? Yes. For? Both. Both? For and against? Yes. So neutral, fair to say?
I'm okay. I am in favor of phase one.
And for, okay.
I'm in favor of phase two.
Okay. All right. Beth Penn?
I'm here. Neutral.
Neutral, okay. Randy Sabald. For. All right. And Alan Childress?
I'm here.
For, against?
I'm architect for the project.
Architect, okay. Terry Farrow? Here. Okay. Mark Kinman? Here. For, against? For. Stephanie Hughes? For, okay. Woody, I can't read the last name. Applicant, okay. And the last one is Gary Mitchell. For, okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak tonight? We got a latecomer. You want to have the opportunity to speak tonight on one of the matters? Yeah. Come on up here. Let me have you sign on in. And what I didn't do, I just realized everyone I spoke. Are you guys all here for the church matter? Is there anybody here for the other matter? Got it. And that was Mark? Woody. I'll get it. right, thank you very much. All right, so the first request for tonight's meeting is BOA 24-0012, 3830 Narrows Road, applicant Faith Church, Inc., per Pastor Mark Kinman. The request is 1, a conditional use request for phased parking and building expansions for an existing church. 2, variances to increase the maximum permitted front yard impervious surface area. 3, a variance to decrease the required front yard depth. 4, variances to decrease the perimeter landscaping requirements. And 5, appeals of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation within the RCVS, single-family residential zone of the Erlanger ordinance. We have Mr. Dembo is up here today. Mr. Dembo, were the appropriate notifications made?
Yes, notification was given per KRS 100 requirements.
All right, very good. And to all board members, do we have any conflicts of interest for the matter? I believe we have one.
Yes, we do.
All right. Mr. McVeigh would like to recuse himself?
Yeah, I need to recuse myself as being a member of the church, but also the pastor is my relative.
Very good. All right, so I would ask, I believe, Sebastian, stay right there, very good. All right, to the board members, any site visits to declare?
None.
None? All right, Mr. Dembo, I will need to swear you in. I believe the Bible is present up there. If you would raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. And for the record, would you please state your name and your position, and if you can recall the address for staff?
Sure. So I'm Patrick Denbo, senior planner with PDS staff. We are at, I believe, 1840 Simon Kenton Drive in Covington.
I won't hold you to that, but thank you. All right, floor is yours.
All right, so thank you very much. And as was stated, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit, variances, and appeals. The existing church, which is Faith Church, is seeking approval to expand its facilities, but is planning on expanding in 2 phases. As a conditional use, any expansion is subject to a conditional use permit. So as such, they are seeking approval for both phases as part of this conditional use request. The other variance and appeal requests are either for both phases or are needed as part of a single phase of the project. So this presentation will break down each phase and the associated requests, and then each request will require separate action from the Board of Adjustment. So the site in question is just over 6 acres. It is currently occupied by a church with associated off-street parking that's located on the front, north side, and rear of the site. The western portion of the lot is heavily wooded. Much of the southeastern portion of the site is currently open space. The site of and most of the surrounding area is zoned RCVS, which is a single-family zoning district. And then there's an area to the south and west that is zoned RCPS, which is also a single-family zoning district. As far as the existing land use, it is institutional and open space. Then the surrounding area consists mostly of suburban-style, single-family residential subdivisions and open space. This is the submitted site layout for Phase 1. So first, I want to show the existing structures, which include the existing church that is 4,460 square feet, an existing storage shed, and an attached covered shelter to that storage shed. There's existing parking that contains 79 parking spaces. And then the proposed expanded parking for Phase 1 will include 54 new spaces, which will now total 133 spaces. The spaces will be 9 by 18 as required, and the use will use the existing access point on the Narrows Road. Then this is the submitted landscape plan for Phase 1, and it is showing all of the required perimeter and interior landscaping. So then for the site layout for Phase 2, as a reminder, here's the existing church structure. They are proposing an expansion that will be 8,650 square feet with an attached covered entrance. There will be additional expanded parking with some modifications within the existing parking area, adding 77 additional spaces for a new total of 210 parking spaces. Each space, again, will be 9 by 18 as required. The drive aisles 12 feet at the narrowest point for one-way traffic circulation. The submitted landscape plan for Phase 2 showing all required perimeter and interior landscaping, except for the far western side, which is the rear of the property. So request 1 is a conditional use request for phased parking and building expansions for an existing church. This request encompasses both proposed phases. The zoning ordinance establishes institutional and civic assembly uses, which does include churches, as a conditional use within the RCVS zone. The board has the power to hear and decide applications for conditional use permits to allow the proper integration into the community of uses which are specifically named in the zoning regulations, which may be suitable only in specific locations in the zone if only if certain conditions are met. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation on the conditional use request. The application will ensure the suitability of the specific location for the requested use. Allowing the expansion of a church at this location will provide a benefit to the community. Request number 2 is a variance to increase the maximum front yard impervious surface area for Phase 1. So the zoning ordinance provides a maximum percentage of impervious surface area within front yards in residential zones. The front yard area is everything forward from the front building line of the primary structure. That is represented here by the dark bold line. The code sets the maximum at 25%. The applicant is requesting 47% for Phase 1 for that expanded parking. So before any variance is granted, the board must find that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the character, will not cause a hazard, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention. In making these determinations, the board shall consider, are there special circumstances? So staff finds that the requested variance does arise from special circumstances which do not generally apply to other properties in the area. The existing church structure is set back far from the adjacent streets, creating a large area of front yard space. Much of the existing parking is already located within the front yard. This property is also unique to the general vicinity since this site contains a large lot with an existing non-residential use. Would the strict application of the provisions deprive the applicant of reasonable use or create an unnecessary hardship? Staff finds that the strict application of the provisions would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of land. Given the existing layout of the site, the proposed expansion is a natural progression of the existing parking. Requiring the impervious surface area to be pushed back out of the front yard area would potentially cause the need to remove at least a portion of an existing wooded area, could result in additional needed grading for the site. And then, are the circumstances the result of actions taken by the applicant? Staff finds that the application is not the result of actions taken by the applicant. The applicant identified the need for the variance during the normal permitting process. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation to the variance to increase the maximum front yard surface area for Phase 1. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. Request number 3 is a variance request to increase the maximum front yard impervious surface area for Phase 2. So just like the previous request for Phase 1, the front yard area is again set by the front building line. So in the case of Phase 2, that would be from the front of the covered entrance. Therefore, the request is 27% for Phase 2, where 25% is required. Or I'm sorry, is the maximum required. So again, before any variance is granted, the board must find that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the character, will not cause a hazard, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention. And then in making the determination, the board shall consider other special circumstances, and staff finds that yes, the requested variance does arise from special circumstances which do not generally apply to other properties in the area for the same reasons as stated for the Phase 1 request. Due to the position of the proposed building expansion, the front yard area is changing to a point where the percentage of impervious surface will actually be closer to the required 25% than what was even provided at Phase 1. Would the strict application of the provisions deprive the applicant of reasonable use or create an unnecessary hardship? Staff finds that the strict application of the provisions would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of land for the same reasons as stated in the Phase 1 request. And then again, these is not the action of the applicant. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation on the variance to increase the maximum front yard surface area for Phase 2. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the regulations. Request number 4 is a variance request to decrease the required front yard depth for Phase 2. So when it comes to front yard setbacks, the zoning ordinance mandates that the setbacks be adjusted based on the average setbacks of the lots that are within 300 feet. So in this case, the setback as required by the zoning district is 30 feet, and that's represented by the bold purple line. So that is the requirement of the zone itself. The existing structure is set back approximately 120 feet from the right-of-way, and that's represented by the bold green line. The average setback, when taking the lots within 300 feet into account, establishes a setback average of 100 feet, and this is represented by the bold blue line. The request is for a setback of 60 feet, which is established by the front of the covered entrance and is represented by the bold red line. So again, 30 feet is what's required per the zone. The building is set back 120 feet. The average setback within 300 feet is 100 feet, and the request is for 60 feet, where 100 feet would be required based off of the averaging. So again, before any variance is granted, the board must find that the variance will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the character, will not cause a hazard, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention. And then in making this determination, the board shall consider other special circumstances. Staff finds the requested variance does arise from special circumstances. The subject lot and the immediate adjacent lots are much larger than typical lots that are found within this zone and have much larger existing setbacks. Would the strict application of the provisions deprive the applicant of reasonable use or create an unnecessary hardship? Staff finds that the strict application of the provisions would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of land. This zoning district typically requires a front yard depth of 30 feet. The applicant is proposing a front yard depth that is double what is typically required in the zone. Most of the proposed addition will remain behind the required 100 feet. And then again, this is not the caused by actions of the applicant. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation on request 4 to decrease the required front yard depth for Phase 2. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. Request 5 is a variance to decrease the required perimeter landscaping requirements in Phase 2. The zoning ordinance requires at least a 5-foot landscape strip along the perimeter of parking lots And as a reminder, the applicant is proposing all required interior and perimeter landscaping in all areas, except for the very western portion of the expanded parking. And that's represented there on the screen. Before a variance is granted, the board must find that the variance will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the character, will not cause a hazard, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention. In making these determinations, the board shall consider other special circumstances. Staff finds that the requested variance does arise from special circumstances. The western side of the subject lot is currently heavily wooded. Would the strict application deprive the applicant of reasonable use or create an unnecessary hardship? Staff finds that the strict application of the provisions would not deprive the applicant of reasonable use of land. And then once again, this is not caused by actions of the applicant. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation for the variance to decrease the required perimeter landscaping for Phase 2. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention. Request 6 is an appeal of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation for Phase 1. The zoning ordinance requires concrete or similar curbing around all landscape areas adjacent to parking lots and drives. The proposed plan is including this curbing only in portions of Phase 1 that are near the entrance to the parking lot. In determining that an appeal may be granted, the board must find that there was an error in or that the applicant was injuriously affected or aggrieved by an order, requirement, interpretation, grant, refusal, or decision of the zoning administrator. Staff is recommending to uphold the interpretation of the zoning ordinance requiring curbing to be installed around the landscape areas adjacent to parking lots and drives for Phase 1. There is no error in the interpretation of the zoning ordinance to require curbing to be installed around all landscape areas adjacent to parking lots and drives. The zoning administrator's interpretation is based on literal language of the zoning ordinance. The ordinance already provides an exception to this requirement as part of a low-impact design landscape area where wheel stops or curb breaks can be substituted. And then request 7 is an appeal of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation for Phase 2. With Phase 2, the applicant is proposing curbing in the areas near the entrance, along the side adjacent to the proposed building, and along the western edge of the lot, which is the rear. All other portions of the lot will not include curbing. And then again, in determining that an appeal may be granted, the board must find that there was an error in or that the applicant was injuriously affected or aggrieved by an order, requirement, interpretation, grant, refusal, or decision by the zoning administrator. Staff is recommending to uphold the interpretation of the zoning ordinance requiring curbing to be installed around all landscape areas adjacent to parking lots and drives for Phase 2. And again, there is no error in the interpretation of the zoning ordinance to require the curbing. The zoning administrator's interpretation is based on literal language of the zoning ordinance. The ordinance already provides an exception to this requirement as part of low-impact design landscape areas where wheel stops or curb breaks can be substituted. And then just for some additional information, the Erlanger zoning ordinance provides that places of assembly are subject to a traffic impact study. The PDS Director of Engineering has determined that the subdivision regulations will require a traffic impact study to be completed whenever the proposed site is expected to generate 100 vehicle trips or more during its peak hour of generation. According to the information provided by the applicant, this will occur with Phase 2 of the project, so a traffic impact study will be required at the time of permits for Phase 2. And that does conclude the presentation, and I did actually forget to submit the staff report, the presentation, and the submitted materials for the record, so we'll do that now.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick from the board? All right, thank you, Patrick. I will ask that when it comes time to vote, that if you could come back up and help us walk through it, because there will be 7 different votes we'll be taking tonight on this matter. So, all right, thank you. Next up, we will hear from the applicant, Mr. Mark Kinman. If you would like to go ahead and take the podium, please.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Kinman, I will need to swear you in. There is a Bible at the podium there for you. If you would put your hand on that and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. And for the record, would you please state your name and your address?
Mark Kinman. I'm on behalf of the church, 3830 Narrows Road.
All right, thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I guess one of the first things I'd like to point out is the parking in Patrick's PowerPoint made it appear that we were adding 210 parking spaces to the existing 79, and that's not the case. At least that's what it appeared. When we had the 79 and then you added that that beige kind of area and you spoke and said that there was 210 spaces. That's what we're seeking to maximum achieve is 210. 79 plus the balance of that, 131-ish, something like that. So I'd like to point that out, that that's not 210 addition to the 79 that we have. We've been experiencing some growth, and we would like to expand the parking lot to accommodate, of course, parking for our parishioners. And then in the future, whenever that would be, we would like to expand the building so that we have more fellowship areas and more seating. We currently have seating for 170, and we're anticipating adding on the building and having an auditorium sanctuary that would seat at least 350. I think that site would hold possibly more, but we're looking to at least double that, maybe a maximum of about 400. That's where the 200-ish parking spaces number comes up with. So the other thing I'd like to, I guess, mention as far as the impact study, you said that that would be in phase 2. Did you say that that was whenever there was 100 cars per, what was the impact?
Go ahead, Patrick.
I guess my concern or my question to that was, I've been monitoring the attendance and I guess the impact that might present. So when we have at service end over the last 12 weeks on average, there's people still there at least 45 minutes after. So they're kind of trickling out. It's not like it's not like a movie theater. The movie's over and everybody leaves at once. It seems like there's about 40% of the people still there 45 minutes after service. Yesterday, there were still people there an hour and 25 minutes afterwards. So I don't think there's going to be the impact that might be considered, but I didn't understand that 100 number that you said.
Sure. So the way it's worded is whenever the proposed site is expected to generate 100 vehicle trips or more during its peak hour of generation. So our director of engineering, they have, and this is set by the subdivision regulations, but they utilize the certain formulas when they are calculating what could generate that level of service. So by her calculations, based upon the information that we have, at least at this point in time, is that a traffic impact study would be required. Again, that would be at phase 2 and during the permitting process, so not during not during a process such as this.
Got it, thank you. Did that answer your question for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, it's not going to answer the specifics of how it's calculated, but whatever an impact hour that is. But anyway, I don't think that's going to be an issue anyway. But I guess the other reason is for the expansion is we do some community things, and it limits us, as far as parking when we do some of the community things. So that'll increase the parking that we do. We do like a family fun day that's coming up again, movie nights, things like that. So it'll make it a lot easier to do those types of events. I guess that's that's it, pretty much. Do you have any questions for me?
Any
Anybody?
questions for Mr. Kinman? I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think part of the, I'll call it applicant, sub-applicant, Mr. Childress, since you're the architect for the project, would you like to come up next? I know you stated you're for, but you're kind of in line with the applicant, right? If you would, before I need to swear you in, if you would, there's a Bible there. If you raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you very much. And for the record, please state your name and your address.
Alan Childress, Childress and Cunningham Architects, 2355 Park Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Patrick, are you able to pull up the submittal drawings? I'd like to start with probably the last drawing on the list, which is the original architect's design for the site. I'm looking for the original architect's design for the site. It was part of the submission. It's all the way at should be all the way at the bottom. We submitted 2 more additional items as part of our submittal. You said you'd have them all here. The civil side? That's the civil. No, I'm talking about the original surveys and site plans for the property. They were a part of our original submittal.
I apologize, this is what I have.
Well, what I wanted to show is that the site originally programmed by the original, I gotta stand here, right?
Yeah, if you don't speak into the microphone, it won't pick it up.
The site, as originally designed by the original architect, was intended to have a building exactly the size that we're proposing and a parking area basically exactly the size we're proposing. In other words, this site was always expected to grow to that size with a church on it. And so we aren't suggesting anything new. We went back to the original drawings from 30-something years ago, and that's what they were planning on doing. Oh, here it is right here. Okay. Yeah. And so you can see here that the future addition that's planned is much larger than the existing building that's on there now. The other thing I thought was interesting is they originally were planning to have parking right up against the street. And we're proposing pulling the parking at least a full parking lot width away from the street, about 50 or so feet away from the street. So there's a much better border against the streets than the original proposal was. The next thing I'd like to talk about is something that shows, I guess we go back to the civil site plan will work. One thing we wanted to, yeah, that one's good there. One thing we wanted to point out is, I don't know if you can see in this lower central portion of the picture, that the existing drainage basin is being almost doubled in size. And what's happening is that now all of the water on the, what I guess is the southern portion of the site, the right side of this page, is free to run all the way down into that valley. But what we're going to be doing is interrupting it and pushing it over into that basin, even from phase one. So even in phase one, all the water on that half of the site is going to be pushed to the new detention basin to control the water much better than it's being controlled now. So that will be a marked improvement. If there's any kind of water issues, we will be mitigating them even in phase one. The other thing we wanted to point out is to the right of that detention basin, that area is all heavily wooded. And that's the reason that we felt it was kind of redundant to, based on, this is request number 5. There's a requirement for every parking area that it has to have a row of smaller bushes and trees right against it. And then there has to be a set of trees that's out at the property line. So you're allowed to have a huge gap of open area between the edge of the parking lot and the edge of the property line. Well, in this case, we have solid trees from the parking lot all the way to the property line. So we thought it was redundant to have to plant another row of trees right along and bushes along the edge of that parking lot when it's all full all the way across. So it's not like anyone's going to be able to see that parking lot any less because we put a little perimeter edge on it. So that's the reason request number 5 was made. And I think that, and I guess I'm going to say something about request number 6 and 7. Our intention is that it is a residential neighborhood. And there are no curbs in this neighborhood anywhere you look. I mean, it's residential driveways. But in order to maintain the look of the entry piece, we're suggesting that all the curbing around the entry piece and up against the building and around the perimeter of the building is going to be all curbs, so that as you look toward the building, yes, you'll see the curbs and it'll look neat and tidy. But in reality, the rest of it's going to have trees and bushes all around it, and what the church has said they've found is that the curbs they have now end up being just a maintenance nightmare, because every time the snow plow goes in or people run into them, then they have to break them and then they have to replace them, and so it's just a constant thing. And what we're suggesting is with all this perimeter landscaping, the island landscaping, it's in terms of the community, whether there's curbing everywhere all around the parking, it's not going to affect it's not going to be a nuisance to the community. Right now, none of the parking around the north and western sides of the building has any curbing. And so we're just going to extend that we were trying to extend that same idea into the rest of the new parking, where, why should it go from no curbs over here to curbs over there and be half and half? What we were trying to do is create a method where we say, let's beautify the things that are most visible, keep the curbing around them, and then not have it, in those locations where it's really not an effect to the community. So I think that's really the main points. But I'll be available for questions if anybody else has other things they're concerned about. Okay?
Yep, thank you very much. Any questions from Childress?
Yes, I'm a little bit confused here. I think I read somewhere in here that you did not want curbs in certain areas because it allows the water to flow into the grass to keep it from rushing down, making gullies and ruts and so forth in there. Now, with that in mind, with all that water coming down to that basin area, is that basin area able to handle this new extended parking lot, all that water coming down?
Oh, yeah, it's been designed by a civil engineer to capture all that water and carry it underground to that basin.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all been designed. And I should note that we had a lengthy discussion with the civil engineer, and that if we have to use the low-impact design with the wheel stops, it would not change his design one bit. So we could just use the wheel stops. In other words, for him, that doesn't change his work. And so we realize it changes simply how much the church has to spend to upkeep and install these things, but, so, okay?
Thank you very much. All right, now we will move on to the proponents, those in favor of this this request. And again, just to make it clear to the public, this is your only time that you'll be able to speak. So just want to make that clear. We'll go, first one will be Kevin Dressman. And Mr. Dressman, I will need to swear you in as well. The Bible is on the podium. If you would raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And for the record, would you please state your name and your address, please?
Kevin Dressman, 520 Timberlake Avenue, Erlanger.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead.
You know, I can't speak a whole lot to the parking design and everything like that, but as far as the traffic flow and whatnot, on the north side of Brightleaf, as you're driving up the hill towards the church, there's approximately 16 homes back at that end of the street, and it's a dead end. So, you know, to me, the impact from the traffic leaving or coming into the church would be negligible to that, portion of the neighborhood. And then it approaches a four-way stop sign. And, from the 3 or 4 times that I go up to the church during the week, there's virtually no traffic coming from Narrows Road on the north side of Brightleaf. Traffic coming out of the Brightleaf subdivision there is pretty much negligible as well. You may run into, see a car or two maybe coming out as you're at the stop sign there. The majority of the traffic comes from the south side of Brightleaf in the larger subdivisions over there. So most of the people coming up to Brightleaf are turning right to go back into those subdivisions, or coming out of that to turn left to go down Brightleaf. And since it's a four-way intersection, and most of the people at the church typically hang around and socialize afterwards, I don't think you'll have a large outflow of traffic, from the building as services end or anything like that, in my opinion.
All right, anything else you'd like to add?
Any questions?
Does have any questions, Mr.? Nope.
Nope.
Good to go. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, next up, Randy Sebold? Sebold. I'll get it. And Mr. Sebold, the Bible's on the podium. If you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. And for the record, please state your name and address.
It's Randy Zabo. I'm 3833. I live directly across the street. If any property is affected as far as traffic, it'd be mine. I've been around Pastor Mark since he's been over there. Before he was there, that site was a problem. It was starting to become a lot of, kids doing things they shouldn't be doing over there. Since he's been there, it's been perfect. As far as the traffic, he has like 4 or 5 people guiding traffic in and out every day, every Sunday. So if anybody's affected, it's me. I have zero problems with it. So I support it.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Zabo? Good to go. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Next up, Stephanie Hughes. And Mrs. Hughes, if you would raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And you please state your name and your address for the record.
Stephanie Hughes, 3868 Tracy Jean Lane, Erlanger, Kentucky.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I actually am a member of Faith Church, and I also live in the Brightleaf subdivision. And everything, I'm for it. There's so much activity that goes on up there that I think it's going to be an asset to the community to be able to reach them more, to get more people in, to come to the services, to come to the community days, to come to the youth. I mean, there's stuff for every level. So I think, we're not just growing the Sunday services, but we're growing every time that we have something up there, any activities that we have. And again, sometimes when I go to church, I'm one of the early ones. Sometimes when my daughter's here, we're one of the late ones. Going and then coming home, it's the same way. Sometimes we leave right away, sometimes after. And we've never had any issues, whether it's on a Sunday service, whether it's Monday night when I'm up there for a lift program that we do for 20 to 30-year-olds. Anytime that I'm up there, there doesn't seem to be any issues. And, the church does a great job at Christmas, decorating the trees, making it, a fun center for the community. So that's it.
Any questions? There you go. Thank you very much. Mr. Gary Mitchell. If you would, please raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Would you please state your full name and your address, please?
Yeah, Gary Mitchell, 3782 Narrows Road in Erlanger.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, quick and sweet. Faith Church, glad they got there. Good neighbors. Love the community events. They bring the community together. I love the holiday decorations. It adds a festive look when you're driving home. Keeps that north side of Narrows Road alive. So I'm very much in favor of their expansion. Good work.
Thank you very much. Nick, is it Kentrop? Yep. Please come on up. And if you would as well, the Bible's on the podium, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Nick Kentrop. I live on 3453 Misty Creek Drive in Erlanger.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead.
I just want to say I'm in favor, and I'm actually the youth leader at the church, and we're super excited about the potential expansion of just being able to reach the community more, do more community events, bring in more teens and teenagers. There's always kids playing basketball in the parking lot. We love trying to connect with the community more, and I think with this, it's going to bring more connections and more community. And to the point about the curbs, I don't know if this is important or not, but the snowplows every year wreck those curbs, and it's always a hassle. So just want to add that to there too.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, in the last proponent / nice segue into those against, Mr. Penn. Chris Penn? Yes. Yes, I believe you stated you were both, so we'll have you come on up. All right, you're fine. Mr. Penn, if you would, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you please state your name and your address for the record?
The name is Chris Penn, P-E-N-N, 1150 Brightleaf Boulevard, Erlanger,
All right.
41018.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I apologize for the allergies. Voice might crack. But, okay, I'm a bad guy. That's not sure what you all are approving. What is the definition of a church under Erlanger ordinance?
Is that a defined term under Erlanger ordinance?
I asked the question because I went to the ordinance on the internet, and I'm a techno idiot, but I can figure out how to ask questions in Google, and I could not find a definition for a church, a house of worship, a temple, a synagogue, or any other structure that would be of a religious use and define it as such. So we're giving approval, or you're giving approval, for the expansion of that church for phase 1 and phase 2. But we don't know what that church is going to be the day after tomorrow or 3 weeks from now, or 30 years from now, because there is no definition of what that can be. Unless I'm wrong and you can find a definition of a church, that's what I'm here for, just to bring that to your all's attention. I think that would be an error to approve something that we don't know what it's going to be. And my past 50 years, I've spent and had an occupation of being a developer, real estate developer. And reading this, when it came into the mail, and I asked for additional information, I started reading and said, boy, this is a playbook that I used for the last 50 years. What is that? I got a piece of property. I want to do something to it. It's not zoned right. I've got a major tenant that wants to go on it as a retailer. If I say what the major tenant is, I'll never get the zoning corrected because the whole community will start throwing tomatoes at me. But I will do the planning, and I will set up a plan and make the presentation so I have a user for the property. Then I will go for the zoning and say, here's the plan, and we can talk it through. I'm not casting aspersions at the church or Mr. Kidman, Pastor Kidman or anything, but I'm wondering, what if the church was doing the same thing? What if the church wants to merge with another church or another religious institution, and it wants to double its size, and it's not going to be of the same quality that Faith Church is? By the way, the holiday and Christmas decorations are terrific. Love them. And they've been a great neighbor. But I'm not worried about their being a neighbor today. I'm worried about what's going to happen 10 years from now. If there's no debt, we got to figure it out. Because I am in favor of the expansion of Phase 1. If they need more parking, God love them, no pun, that's good. Phase 2, I don't know what that building is. I don't know what's going to be in it. And I asked the question, there's got to be a standard somewhere for planning and zoning. I've been around the block on this thing once or twice in my life, as to if there's so many seats in a church, you have a requirement of X parking spaces. 2 people go to church at the same time, so it's X divided by 2. You can work out the formulas. So working out the formulas, I don't know what the seating is, but I know that, as an example, there currently is 1 parking space for 56 square feet of building. Okay, I don't know how many seats that is, but it's a ratio. If you do the Phase 1 expansion, you have 1 parking space for every 33 feet. So you created more parking per square foot. It's a good deal. If you go on to Phase 2, you're now looking at 1 space for every 63 feet. You've gone beyond the first request of being 1 to 40-something or 56, and now you're making the parking worse. So I'm having a tough time figuring out where's that happy medium and what is the parking going to be. I look at the plan. I'm not an architect. Phase 1 parking runs from the entrance, the current entrance, to that would be the south, and it contains 56 parking spaces. Typical parking space is either 10 by 20 feet in size or 9 by 18 feet in size. Add a third for driveways and so forth, you end up with 2 parking spaces every 650 feet, okay? If it's raining and if there's snow out and it's windy and cold and I don't feel like going to church, but my wife is dragging me along, and I happen to be able to park in the very last parking space, to get from that space to the front door of the church, Phase 1, I have to walk over 750 feet. How convenient is that? If I take that parking, that's going to be tricky.
Just note, Mr. Penn, if you're going to speak, I need you into the podium. You're more than welcome to walk up there, but, okay.
I'll say it in the podium, if this parking was placed here along the side of the building, the last parking space to either get into the back door of the church, the front door of the church, and it's a distance of about 150 to 200 feet versus 700 feet, the way it's presently laid out. So I don't understand it. I repeat, get it to the podium. A layman's observation of the parking lot is if it's turned 90 degrees and it runs perpendicular with the existing church, you'll get the same amount of parking, and it'll be more convenient to the parishioner to be able to walk to the back door or the front door. And if there's a side door, they can go to the side door. But I'm still concerned, curious more than anything, on the parking ratios being much higher, even though you're putting the parking lot in, and being less convenient to the parishioner. Drainage. That site is challenged with elevations from Narrows Road down to what I believe is a drainage easement with the city of Erlanger or the state of Kentucky that picks up all the manholes, all the water that comes down Brightleaf Boulevard. In front of my house, which is immediately to the west, I believe on my side of the street only, there are 6 catch basins. That's a lot of water coming down that street. It's going down into the swale. The sheet drain suggests a sheet drain of a parking lot that size. Hard surfaced asphalt. It's going to be a mess coming off of that hill. There's going to be water everywhere. I don't see how you can control it. And I built some pretty big parking lots in my life. I don't see how you control it without curb gutter and drop box inlets to capture the water so it doesn't come over the curb and wash everything out. The retention basin, whether it's retention or detention, I don't know. Retention usually retains all the water. Detention usually restricts the water over time so it goes down gradually. I don't know what it is, but because it's going to be twice as large as it is now, there's no way that's going to handle that parking lot unless it's detained also in the lot with catch basins. You have a perk factor, as we all know in Kentucky. If you got septic or cistern or whatever, there's a perk factor that goes along with the ground and soil that is not there with asphalt. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. Hit the ground and it hits the retention basin, basically. And there has to be underground. I couldn't see in the plan that I received whether there is underground drainage. The calculations for it, 24-inch pipe, 30, I mean, I don't know what it is, but we got to rely on the professionals for that. It's a concern of mine because that drainage easement handles a lot of water, and you certainly don't want to see that parking lot start sliding down a hill. A question I had, not necessarily to do with the plan, is the Faith Church affiliated with any other churches locally, statewide, nationwide, or anything of that nature? Not knowing that, I mean, if it is, the question in my mind is there a merger down the road with somebody else that might bring in a different attitude, different operation, if you will, different management, that what I'm in favor of with Reverend Kidman, that is not going to be right for the community. Is it going to be a church? Are we approving a church without seeing any architecturals? Is the church 1-story or 2-story expansion? You can't tell me what it looks like. I don't know if it's going to be right for the neighborhood, but we're granting it permission in phase 2. And I don't agree with that. I'm sort of a kind of guy that you got to show me. I'm not from Missouri, but you got to show me before I'm going to approve it. The other question I would have is if you're planning on an affiliation with another church, is it a church that's right for the community? Don't know. The thing that I have with when I asked the original question was, can you define what a church is? The question I have in my mind, I'm an old guy. Some of you guys are about as old as me. I've watched this country in the last 5 to 10 years change politically, philosophically, religiously, and I don't like the direction it's going in. It's America. You can be whatever religion you want. But I guess I don't know what the function of the church is without a definition. I don't know, for example, does the church serve a community as far as it goes for providing services, providing food for the needy, clothing for the needy, any other services? Is the building going to be used for sports? Is it going to be used for, how about housing? How about migrant housing? It's all over this freaking country. And people and NGOs, nonprofit organizations are making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because the government is paying them to take immigrants off of buses, house them, put them on another bus, and send them somewhere else. I'm not suggesting that. Believe me, I'm not suggesting that for the church. I'm saying that it's happening all over this country, and I don't want it happening in my side yard. So how do you prevent that from happening? But you give the pastor the right and the ability to make this church something that he dreams it to be. That's above my pay grade. That's you guys. You got to figure it out. And like I said, I am in favor of the phase 1. Phase 2, I cannot give carte blanche to anything without knowing what it is, how much it's going to cost, when it's going to take place, who's going to use it, how often are they going to use it. But they may end up being my neighbor, and I'd like to know that. I got other questions, but I think I've said the main part. I don't want it to be something that is going to be detrimental to the community. And, you know, a place for prayer and worship, recognize your higher power, that's good. But take it outside the confines of your property line and your building, not so good if it becomes part of the community, if you don't want it to be. I'm done.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Penn.
Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Penn? We're good, thank you, sir.
Okay.
The next one up for against is Veronica, is it Luby? If you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you please state your name and your address for the record?
Veronica Luby, 3826 Narrows Road.
All right, go ahead, thank you.
So my husband and I, we live right next to the church. So we are right there, and everything below the church to our property is right back there as well. So just, we have enjoyed having the church be there. We've been there for 26 years, so we were there for the first church, seeing that plan. Not sure if that plan was maybe not approved of that size or what happened. Probably a good thing it wasn't, because it did not last, from kind of the same thing, maybe just could not sustain. Right now, there is a very low impact. We don't feel a lot of the traffic. It's been a very nice community church, and still having a lot of green space. The church offers one service on Sunday, so just like so many of the other churches, it's surprising that it's not offered multiple services to help with any parking. Being right next door, I'm there quite a bit, or I walk daily, and the church is not, the parking itself, I would say at least 80% of the time is not used. I appreciate what Mr. Penn was saying about if they do expand the parking, if it were closer. I guess this is our neighborhood. I think about the impact of this community with this type of parking, what this looks like. In addition to Mr. Penn, the water runoff, again, we're right behind. And I know, talking about that area being increased to catch the water, we have seen water crevices. We were talking about it. We have walking paths behind there, and we've noticed changes over time. And just wondering what's to come, what this would look like to our property, and who would be responsible for it. So the impact of different things, impact of the community. I know that Brightleaf have many friends and family in Brightleaf, and I'm sure they did not receive the information of tonight. I'm sure they probably have no idea of what 2 and 3 or the impact that this would look like coming into the neighborhood as well. So just the concern, as well as Mr. Penn had said, it's really what's to come down the line when you open this up so large, other larger mega church. I don't know what that would look like, but for right now, honestly, it just doesn't feel right. There's very limited. I'm glad to see even talk of the trees or the beautification. I mean, there's limited of that right now. So, any questions?
Any questions for Mrs. Luby? We're good. Thank you.
Thanks.
And the last speaker I have on the list, Mrs. Penn, Beth Penn. Mrs. Penn, if you would, please raise your right hand.
Right, left, right.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you please state your name and your address for the record?
My name is Elizabeth Penn, 1150 Brightleaf Boulevard, Erlanger, Kentucky.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
I said that I was neutral, and I feel that I'm neutral because I don't have enough information to be for or against. Like Chris and Veronica, I would say the church has certainly been a good neighbor for the 11 years that we basically live next door. But I have concerns about what happens in phase 2. What does that expansion look like? I'm all for more worship space and more people getting into church. I think that's wonderful. On the other hand, I might have questions about, are we having conferences that are going to cause increased traffic? Are we going to make space for preschool that would cause more traffic? Are we talking about athletic facilities? All of those things can be good things, but they also have an impact on the community. And a couple of people have mentioned that we don't have an enormous traffic problem on Brightleaf, and I would agree with that at some times. We're the folks who have the brick mailbox that has been mowed down by drunken drivers more than one time. I also walk the dog, up and down Brightleaf frequently. There are lots of moms with toddlers and strollers, kids on bicycles and scooters, and I do worry about anything that would increase the traffic to the extent that would have a negative impact on those kinds of informal community activities. So I remain neutral, but I'd like to have some more information about what exactly that expansion will entail. Thank you. Any questions?
No questions from Ms. Penn? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will invite the applicant, Mr. Kinman, and if you would like to bring Mr. Childress up, if you guys would like to respond, you don't have to. It's completely up to you if you'd like to address any of the questions that have been proposed today. And just for the record, just please state your name before you begin once again.
Mark Kinman, I'm the pastor of Faith Church. I guess, like I said, as far as function, Mr. Penn, I'm sure if we sat down, we'd probably find ourselves agreeing on just about everything, theologically and politically and all the above. I think that, how do you guarantee who anybody is? There was a church there before, and 7 years ago, something like that, or 9 years ago, whatever it was, and we're going to continue functioning the way we've been doing. We have the community at heart. We're not exclusive at all. As far as doing a house of worship, we are, yes. As far as helping in the community, if you drove past the corner, sometimes we frequently put up a big 4-foot by 8-foot banner, just simply if anybody needs food, Times are tough, and even middle-class families in the neighborhood, they'll take us up on it. They're like, hey, it's a little tough. We do that strictly out of donations from our church. We don't seek any government help. I'm with you on a lot of those points. And we are not going to have zero intentions to function any different than what we have. It's just we keep coming up to some of these barriers as far as attendance, and we would like to expand, and part of that is parking. As far as what are we going to become later, or what if we expand even more, the reason we're seeking to come up with a total of about 210, we may wind up at 190 or 193 or 201, I don't know. But as far as that ratio, as far as how far somebody has to walk to church, we would like that to be as minimal as possible. That's why typically parking lots kind of go on a circle around. If it's too far, we would get one of those, I guess those little golf carts, but it's really not going to be that far. It's not that big of a lot. But as far as the parking and the ratio, that it's not based on what do we think we're going to do, it's based on the number of seats. There's ordinances and there's regulations, fire codes, things like that. So for example, it's about 2 to 1. It's not about the space. You did some great numbers and some great homework on percentages of space. It's really based on occupancy. And the occupancy, if we think we can get to 350 or 400 people, then we would have to have 200 spaces. If the site would only support, like let's say, hey, we want to be a mega church, which I have zero desire to be. If we wanted to build a mega church and we wanted to have a building that would seat 5,000 people, yes, you could build that building there. There's acreage to do it, but you wouldn't have any parking. So there's ordinances, regulations. This is why we've come up with, the architect can speak to that with these numbers. So it's more of a ratio thing, not a percentage thing. If we had a sanctuary that would seat 400, we would have to have. If we had 350, we would, and so forth. So the square footage, as far as what the building, we don't want an ugly building either. One of the things that we liked about the site is a great neighborhood, and it's attractive, and we would put in a building that is attractive. We're not going to put in a gymnasium. We're not going to put in migrant shelter. We're going to exist doing what we've been doing. I think that's the best prediction of who somebody is or what they will do is what they have been doing. There's a lot of things people say that they will do, but if they haven't been doing it, it's less likely. We have been serving the community. We charge $0 for any of our events, no matter what we do. We spend thousands of dollars on each of those events. We invite anybody who would like to come. We like to think we're serving the community. We don't have to do those things, but we're serving the community. Youth group, Nick was talking about that. We've turned the property into kids doing drugs and other things and dumping garbage to clean up the place, and I'd like to think that we're a benefit to the community. I think an expansion would be a further benefit to the community. I don't see any issues as far as, I guess we have the benefit, we know what we're going to do. We're just going to continue loving people and being a benefit and a blessing to the community. That's all we want to do. But we are growing, and we would like to grow. We would like to not be thwarted from growing. So part of the plan is bigger sanctuary to have more people and more of a fellowship area, because our people like to hang out and talk and fellowship, and we have a very small area right now, and we would like to expand that. So part of that is in the plan, but this is the planning stage. Can we, the site will support a building that would seat up to, say, 400 people, and the site will also support parking to accommodate that with handicap and everything else. So I hope that addresses some of your concerns. We're just going to continue doing good stuff that we've been doing. As far as our affiliation, we're about 10 and a half, 11 years old. We've done nothing but grow. We do also have a church in Guadalajara. We have a big food ministry. We call it Isaiah House. We meet in the parking lot at St. Elizabeth Hospital, and then parking lot in Ludlow, in the Ludlow Vets parking lot. We buy the food, we give it away. We ask for nothing. We feed about 550, 600 families every single month, and we're just going to continue doing those things. I'd like to open up a church in Covington so that the people who don't have cars, that we kind of have church once a month, and several hundred families, they just, I'm their pastor, but they don't have cars and they don't have money. So we would like to grow the church, because if we put in a church in Covington where we would like to, it's not where you typically would put a church. Much like our church in Guadalajara, it's in areas that it's not where churches go to be successful. It's where people have great needs, and it takes funding from our church where we're at locally currently. So that's one of the plans I've expressed to the church, is to grow so that we can support more growth, because it's going to take money from this church to plant the church in Covington, because they're not going to have the money to support it ongoing. Architect?
I'm Alan Childress again. Well, the only things I wanted to say is that the parking ratios that are allowed by the zoning code and the parking ratios that we're supplying, our parking ratios are very generous. In other words, if the parking, and I forget the exact parking ratio the zoning code allows, it might be 1 to 3 or something like that. But we're more in the 1 to 2 range. We are allowing more parking per square foot of the building than is required. And the second thing, I think there was a concern about the drainage, and I just wanted to say that, that these things are also regulated, and our civil engineer also has to have all of those calculations and such reviewed, and those have to be submitted according to the standards of the state of Kentucky. So all of the drainage requirements are being met and reviewed by another organization that is going to make sure that those meet the requirements of the state of Kentucky.
I didn't say if there's any questions. Yeah.
Still on tours. One more thing. I was just going to mention too, that if you notice the original parking, or the original expansion plan showed an even bigger building that we're showing. And I've heard no discussion from the pastor about sports facilities. We've only talked about the size of that building being enough to hold a new sanctuary. Right now, they have a 2-story building, and we're planning a 2-story building that expands straight across. So you have the upper level entering from the top side and the lower level entering from the bottom side, just as the current building does. And the only thing we're doing is we're putting in the porte cochere at the entry to keep a light touch towards the street, but move it forward. And we're actually moving the whole entry sequence to the middle of the whole complex when it's finished. So there's an entrance at the top in the middle and an entrance at the bottom in the middle. And then you go into the 2 sides, one side sanctuary, one side children's ministry. So it's a common format, but it isn't designed with the idea of sports facilities. And because we're occupying most of the semi-level space on the lot with parking, there's probably not going to be ball fields and that kind of thing either, so. Ball fields and that kind of thing either, so. So I would say sports facilities are not currently part of the plan.
Yeah, they're not part of the future plan either, and there's not enough space to do all that kind of thing anyway. But as I was saying, what we've been doing, we're going to continue doing. It's just that the space that we have now is not meeting all of our needs, so that's why we're seeking the expansion. When this will happen, I don't know. It's going to cost a lot of money to do these things. We're just taking all the necessary steps to do these things. And I understand, when you move and you got a nice neighborhood and then they're going to build another house, or there's a development behind you and there goes your tree line and privacy or whatever. But I mean, it's happening in every single neighborhood. I think you'll find that once we're finished, it's like, okay, it's a parking lot and a building, but it's attractive and it'll look good, and it's not gonna have any impact on anything more than what it is right now. So, but I'm happy to take any questions. I don't know, do we take questions from anybody or just you guys, or?
Just the board at this time, yeah.
Okay.
It's not that kind of forum.
Okay.
But any questions? We're good. What I'd like to do, I know that there is going to be questions for you if you just remain right there. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of the hearing and then open it to discussion amongst the board members. And if you want to go ahead and ask your question of the applicant, go for it.
So this question is more for Mr. Childress. Mr. Penn brought up a concern regarding water flow differences, whether there's a curb there or not, on the west side of the property. Were the civil engineer's calculations done under both scenarios, with and without the curb?
There is a curb on the western side in all scenarios. There's in this phase 2 project right here that's shown, there is a curb at the western edge. And catch basins.
These dark spots are the catch basins. So currently, right now, this is all field, currently just draining, not being captured. So if anything, what we would be doing is these catch basins, 3 of them with curb, directs the water into this underground, this tension.
Phase one's the same premise.
Gentlemen, first off, Mr. Kinman, I'd ask that you remain at the mic so then this can stay on record.
And then you need
Per statute, we have a very specific format that we have to stick to. And unfortunately, the public comment section has passed. At this time, questions are just specifically from the board and comments back from the applicant.
Okay, sorry.
You're good. Thank you very much. I was just lit up my microphone to say the same thing, so thank you.
So was your question, I guess, answered by the architect then?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so again, the public forum public comment portion is closed. It's discussion amongst board members. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to talk about? Any other questions of staff, the applicant, the city?
Gentlemen, if I may, a point of personal privilege, I would like to just bring it to your attention. We had this discussion previously that the board, in its decision-making, can add conditions that I would like to see made. For instance, if you were to find a worry about future use, for instance, we've had discussions of, not allowing commercial activity to occur at a property subject to the variance being approved. I just want to put that out in your minds in case it's something that you want to consider.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. So if there are no other further discussions to be had, I will now close the discussion by the board members and invite any board member to make a motion.
Is one of our questions done for people in the audience?
Yes, the question and public comment portion is now closed, yes. So, Mr. Dembo, if you could please come back up, because we have 7 different things we're going to be making a motion on. So if we could start with the first one, please. And I believe that was the conditional use.
So the first request is the conditional use request for the, for both phases of the project.
I'll go ahead and I'd like to make the following motion with reference to file BOA 24-0012, a conditional use request for phased parking and building expansions for an existing church. I move to approve the conditional use permit based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and based on the testimony of staff with witnesses present at the public hearing, and find that the conditional use permit is essential to or would promote the public health, safety, or welfare, and will be properly integrated into the community of uses which are specifically named in the zoning regulations and will be suitable in this specific location. And we will need a second on the motion.
I second the motion.
So Mr. Whalen has proposed the initial motion. Mr. Rolfe seconded. We'll now take a vote. Mr. Whalen, aye. Mr. Rolfe?
Aye.
Mr. Farrow?
Aye.
All right, so that has passed. We'll move on to the second one, please.
Request 2 is the variance request to increase the maximum front yard impervious surface area for phase 1.
I make a motion in favor of the variances with the reference to file BOA 24-0012, a variance request to increase the maximum front yard impervious surface area for phase 1. I move to approve the variance based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and based on the testimony of staff and witnesses present at the public hearing, and will find that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, it will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
All right, Mr. Rolfe has made a motion in favor of the variance request. Do we have a second?
I second.
Mr. Farrow seconds, and we will take a vote. Mr. Rolfe?
Yes, approve.
Mr. Farrow?
Aye, yes.
And Mr. Whalen, yes. So second request is passed as well. So number 3, another variance request?
Yes, request 3 is the variance request to increase the maximum front yard impervious surface area for phase 2.
Entertain a motion.
You go ahead.
Sure. Right here.
No, those right up here.
I'd like to make the following motion with reference to file BOA 24-0012, a variance request to increase the maximum front yard impervious surface area for Phase 2. I move to approve the variance based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and based on the testimony of staff and witness present at the public hearing, and find that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Thank you. Mr. Farrow has made a motion in favor of the variance request. Do we have a second?
I second.
Mr. Rolfe seconds. We'll now take a roll call vote. Mr. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen, yes. Request 3 has passed as well. On to number 4, Mr. Dembo.
Request 4 is the variance request to decrease the required front yard depth for Phase 2.
Do we have a motion?
I would like to make the following motion with reference to file BOA 240012, a variance request to decrease the required front yard depth for Phase 2. I move to approve the variance based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and based on the testimony of staff and witnesses present at the public hearing, and find that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Thank you. Mr. Rolfe has made a motion in favor to pass the request. Do we have a second?
I second.
Mr. Farrow seconds. I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Rolfe?
Yes.
Mr. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen? Yes. Number 4 also passes. And number 5?
Request 5 is the variance request to decrease the required perimeter landscaping requirements for Phase 2.
I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to make the following motion with reference to file BOA 240012, a variance request to decrease the perimeter landscaping requirements for Phase 2. I move to approve the variance based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and based on the testimony of staff and witnesses present at the public hearing, and find that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
All right, Mr. Farrow has made a motion in favor of the variance request. Do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Rolfe seconds the motion. Take a roll call vote. Mr. Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen? Yes. Number 5 is passed, and now on to number 6. This is the appeal of the zoning ordinance.
Request 6 is appeal of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation for Phase 1.
So to be clear, the request is to overturn the zoning ordinance by the decision of the zoning administrator, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
I'm sorry. I would like to make the following motion with reference to file BOA 240012, an appeal of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation for Phase 1. I move to overturn the decision of the zoning administrator based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and based on the testimony of staff and witnesses present at the public hearing based on wait a minute.
So if I understand correctly, just want to clarify, you are making a motion to overturn the zoning administrator's findings?
That is correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
And the reasons would be is what we're looking for.
I didn't jot that down. I apologize.
If I may clarify that potential grounds may be in the same reasoning that you may find that granting the variance and overturning the zoning administrator will not adversely affect the public health and safety or welfare will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, those same grounds can constitute reason to overturn the zoning administrator in this circumstance. Just wanted to provide that info.
Does that follow?
Yes, I agree.
Just to clarify, staff recommendation is to uphold that interpretation of the zoning ordinance.
Correct. And the motion on the floor is to overturn the decision made by the zoning administrator and against the recommendation of staff, correct?
Yes.
That is the motion on the table. Do we need to clarify the reasons for it, or can we say as stated by council?
I would clarify the reason.
Okay.
I would clarify the reason for it.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I'm a little bit confused here.
So your motion is to overturn, and you've read it. Now you have to state the reasons for overturning your decision of the zoning administrator.
Okay, I didn't see that.
And I believe council has advised that the reasons can be that they will not adversely affect, or that they will adversely affect.
Oh, wait a minute,
That for overturning that they will
Yes,
not.
that they will not.
wait a minute. We were number 6.
We are on number 6, correct, sir.
Okay, you just showed me number 5.
The language I believe you're looking for is, if I may, the testimony for staff and witnesses present at the public hearing based upon that it will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. Is that correct, council?
That is correct.
Okay. So that is the proposal, or the motion on the table. Do we have a second? If there is not a second, then the motion will die.
You can say yes.
So his motion is to overturn.
His motion is to overturn, and to order to take a vote, we would have to have a second. If there is no second, the motion will die, and we can make another motion. Okay. So I believe no second will be made on that motion, so that motion is dead. Would you like to make a different motion? All right, we'll make a second motion. How about that? I would like to make the following motion on file BOA-24-0012, an appeal of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation for Phase 1. I move to uphold the decision of the zoning administrator based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and the testimony of staff and witnesses present at the public hearing. So again, the motion made by Mr. Whalen to uphold the zoning administrator's findings. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe, or Mr. Farrow seconds. We'll take a vote. Mr. Whalen, yes. Mr. Farrow?
Yes.
And Mr. Rolfe?
Yes.
So that passes as well. So, or should I say it doesn't pass, that motion was voted against. So, and now request number 7.
Can I clarify that?
Yes, you can, please.
Your, Chair Whalen, your motion passed technically. The motion passed the request.
Correct. The motion to deny the request passed.
Correct.
There we go. All right.
Sorry.
You're good. No, thank you very much. It's good to, that was a confusing one. So on to number 7.
And request 7 is the appeal of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation for Phase 2.
I will go ahead and like to make the motion on file BOA-24-0012, an appeal of the zoning ordinance requiring curb installation for Phase 2. I move to uphold the decision of the zoning administrator based on the facts and considerations contained in the staff report and the testimony of staff and witnesses present at the public hearing. So again, just like the last, number 6, Mr. Whalen has voted to against the motion, or against the request, and to uphold the zoning administrator's findings. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell seconds. Roll call vote. Mr. Whalen, yes. Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe?
Yes.
So again, the motion passed to deny the request. So that would conclude everything on Faith Church. We thank you all for coming this evening, and we will move right along with the agenda on to our next matter.
I would like to make a motion for about a 5-minute recess, please.
I think that's fine. I will second the motion. We'll take a 5-minute recess real quick. Thank you. I think we're all in. Are you guys, everyone who's here on this matter, I believe, is here. Are we good? You guys good to go? It hasn't been officially 5 minutes.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. You guys, are you ready? We can move? All right, we will, back in, Mr. McVeigh is back. All right, so we are moving on to the second item of the public hearing. It is BOA-24-0013, 508 Commonwealth Avenue, applicant Quality Signs and Service Company, Inc., per David W. Erlanger, on behalf of J. Bahavani, Inc. Close. The request is a variance request to increase the maximum square footage for a drive-through sign in the mixed-use zone of the Erlanger ordinance. In summary, the applicant is proposing to install a 19.98 square foot menu board with a maximum size for drive-through signs allowed without a permit is 12 square feet. And I believe we have, Mr. Sheets is out. Is it Celeste Leonard?
Yes.
Correct, with staff, welcome. Moving here, if to Ms. Leonard, were there appropriate notifications made on this matter?
Yes, notification per KRS 100.
Thank you very much. And to the board members, are there any conflicts of interest on this?
No.
There being none, were there any site visits to declare? None. And
Chairman Willen, we'll back up just a bit in confirmation of notification for, unless did we already do that?
Yes.
I will add swearing in the witness and also entering in the file into the record.
Did I not just read in the file?
I'm sorry if I missed that.
Yeah, I believe I did. And the next thing on the item was to swear in Ms. Leonard. We're good. No more recesses. We get all funky, man. All right. So Ms. Leonard, if you would, there is a Bible on the podium. If you would raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. And for the record, would you please state your name? And I won't make you add the address of staff, but just you're with staff, your name for the record, please.
Celeste Leonard. I'm the PDS planning intern.
All right. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Celeste Leonard. As was stated, the applicant is requesting a variance to increase the maximum square footage of a drive-through sign. The applicant is proposing to install a 19.98 square foot menu board where the maximum size for a drive-through sign allowed without a permit is 12 square feet. The subject is located in the east side of Commonwealth Ave, one lot north of Baker Street. The site is 0.36 acres and is currently occupied by a gas station with an attached Dunkin'. I'm so sorry about that. The surrounding area consists of auto-oriented commercial uses as well as single and multifamily residential units. The Erlanger City Building is located across Commonwealth Avenue. The site is currently zoned mixed use. The surrounding adjacent properties are all under the same zoning classification. The existing land use is commercial, with north and east of the site being the same classification. The south and west of the site, the land use is commercial and institutional. The submitted site plan includes the following: the existing building, removal of existing menu board and existing preview board, installation of 19.98 square foot menu board where the maximum size for drive-through signs without the permit is 12 square feet, installation of a new drive-through canopy and protective bollard. The submitted plan for the new menu board, 5 foot 11 inches tall. Size is 4 foot 1/8 inches by 4 foot 10 inches for a total of 19.98 square feet. Installation of a 10 foot 1/2 inch tall drive-through canopy, including a speaker and microphone. Installation of a 4 foot 8 inch protective bollard. As was stated, the applicant is requesting a variance to increase the maximum square footage of a drive-through sign. In districts where drive-through are allowed, drive-through signs or other instructional or informational devices related to the drive-through facility shall be allowed without a sign permit, provided that such device is less than 12 square feet in size, and that the only words, numerals, symbols, or pictures on such device that are legible from any location other than the site on which it is located shall include no commercial message, but simply identify the device as a menu, directory, instructional, informational, or something similar, or a logo that is no larger than 1 foot in any dimension. Before any variance is granted, the board must find that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the character, will not cause a hazard, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the required of the zoning regulations. In making these determinations, the board shall consider, are there any special circumstances? No, staff find that the requested variance does not arise from special circumstances which do not generally apply to other properties in the area. Would the strict application of the provisions deprive the applicant of reasonable use or create unnecessary hardship? Yes, staff finds that the strict application of the provisions of the regulation would create unnecessary hardship on the applicant. The applicant has identified that all menu boards for Dunkin' are manufactured as a standard unit. Requiring a smaller menu board would create the need for custom manufacturing of the menu board and the content of the menu board. Additionally, a smaller menu board may not fit all of the available products. Are these circumstances the result of action taken by the applicant? No, staff finds that this application is not the result of action taken by the applicant. The applicant identified the need for the variance during the normal permitting process. Staff is providing a favorable recommendation. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation. The menu board will not be seen from the street, only by people using the parking lot that surround the parcel. Are there any questions at this time? Oh.
Thank you very much, Ms. Leonard. Got any questions for Mrs. Leonard? Go ahead, if you have one.
I also said it, but I'm currently putting this on the record, the staff report, submittals, and presentation.
Great, thank you very much. And again, any questions for Ms. Leonard?
I have one. On that one, you were indicating that the sign would not be seen from the street, whereas according to the last document here, the colored one, it shows that the install a new protective ballot on the side, and then remove existing preview board, install new drive-through canopy, install new menu. I thought the way you said that it was going to be all to the rear of the building, not onto the side of the building. Does that make sense?
So Patrick Denbo, PDS staff.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at.
Okay, so your question is the proposal what side of the building?
Yeah, from when she was explaining that, I thought it was to the rear, but everything's now going to be on the right-hand side as we're looking at it.
Correct. Sorry, yeah, so what they're proposing is all going to be to the right of the building in this image. The circle to the rear is indicating where the drive-through window is located.
Oh, that's where the
menu board that's being proposed is where these green circles are located.
I thought the drive-through window was on the one that.
I can read it. Can I speak?
When you get up there, you can clarify that for us. Thank you.
Okay.
We can certainly defer to the applicant.
Okay, we'll do that at the time. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Leonard or Mr. Dembo? I think we're good. Thank you very much. All right, so now we will hear from the applicant. Woody Fellinger, I believe you're the only one here to speak on this tonight. If you would, You got it. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right. If you would, please state your full name for the record and your
David W.
address.
Fellinger. I wrote down on the sheets Woody Fellinger. I go by Woody.
Okay. And address, please.
6100 Siler Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio. That's my personal address. So to clear this up right here, the red circle is, there's an existing menu board that we will be removing on the back side of the building. The drive-through is actually on the far side. So
as you come around,
you pull all the way around to the back side, you place your order, and then you pull around to the opposite side of that building, and that's where the drive-through is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So what they're trying to accomplish is putting the canopy and the menu board on this side, on the right side of the building, to get more orders in queue first, and then, having them wrap all the way around the building. That's the idea, to get that, by moving them to the menu board to this side of the
so
building.
you're saying if you put it there, you're going to be able to flow the traffic faster?
Correct,
around?
yes. It gets them the orders in queue quicker, and they have more people, instead of getting their orders way up there on that side of the building, and therefore they get more cars in queue. That's the idea.
Is that new canopy and so forth similar to the one down at Fort Wright?
Yes, they're all the same. They're same across the board. It's a Dunkin' standard. That size is a standard. And so it's a 7.9 square foot difference, which is not extraordinary in this case. We handle, this is a different whatever, but we handle, I think, 40 or 50 Dunkins in the tri-state area. So every single, digital menu board that we do is of that size. And it would be a hardship on the customer to make them try to do something different. Not only because of the content, but they would have to figure out a way to upload their content manually when the content comes directly from corporate.
Yes.
So
I did read that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So PDS did an excellent job, putting that together. Those are pretty much the hardships that would be on the customer. If you guys have any more other questions for me, I have really nothing else. Those are really the hardships that would be on the customer that would go towards this variance.
I just have a couple questions around the sign, larger sign, more lights. Is there anything else you are doing or able to do to help deter the excess light that a larger sign would bring?
So the larger or the smaller sign, you're still going to have the same amount of, nits or output. It's not going to make a difference. So let's just say you go to a Dunkin' down the street and you have this one right here. If I were to make it smaller, it's still going to output the same amount of lights or whatnot. I don't know. I would have to look it up. I don't have that on hand as far as the output of light. But they are auto dimming, so at night it would not matter. It's not going to be overly abundant, and also it's tilted to the point where it's not going to be pointed back, or it's not going to be any lighter than the signage we put up a couple years ago as far as the output.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Fellinger? I think we're good. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. And again, that he was the only one here to speak on it for tonight. So I will now close the public comment portion of the hearing and open up to discussion amongst the board members. Any discussion? There being none, I will now close the discussion by the board members and invite any board member to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion with reference to file BOA 24-0013, variance request to increase the overall size allowed of a drive-through menu board in the MU zone. I move to approve the variance based on the facts and consideration contained in the staff report and based on the testimony of staff and witnesses present at the public hearing, and find that the variance will not affect the public health, safety or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow any unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
All right, thank you, Mr. McVeigh. It was made a motion in favor of the request to approve it. Do we have a second?
I second.
Mr. Rolfe seconds. Take a roll call vote. Mr. McVeigh?
Aye.
Mr. Rolfe?
Aye.
Mr. Farrow?
Aye.
And Mr. Whalen? Aye. Motion has passed. Thank you very much. All right, we will now close the public hearing portion of tonight's meetings and move along. Are there any preliminary hearings to discuss?
Not tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are there any rehearing appeals to discuss?
No, sir.
For board items, we do have one item here. We have to elect a vice chairman with our turnover in the last few months. And I believe, do we have to make a motion for that and we vote on it, roll call vote?
Yes, sir.
Correct. I would like to make the motion for Mr. Rolfe to my left. Do we have or I'm sorry, not Mr. Rolfe, Mr. McVeigh to my left. I looked at him.
Left?
No offense. Do we have a second for Mr. McVeigh as vice chair?
I second.
Mr. Rolfe takes a second. Mr. Whalen, aye. Mr. Rolfe?
Aye.
Mr. Farrow?
Aye.
And John, if you want to
Aye. Yes, I'll vote aye.
So John McVeigh is voted in vice chair. Thank you. Are there any additional staff items? Staff items? We're good? If I could back up one more board item, I forgot. Welcome, Mr. Farrow, to the board. This first meeting, that was they're normally not as long, but it was good. It was a good way to cut your teeth. Next meeting, July 22nd is scheduled. Do we know, are we on for that? Any items that have been proposed?
Yes. Mr.
Okay.
Dembo, if you want to give a preview.
Yes, we do have one item, and I don't remember exactly what it is, so I apologize, but we do have one item on coming up for the July meeting.
Perfect. All right. And with that, I will open the floor for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Wolf makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Farrow seconds the motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Being none,